Hello, I'm Tommy Vinson, and it's my joy to be back with you this week to bring a devotion. I'm serving as interim preacher here at Kirby and would like to invite you to come and worship with us any Sunday, 10:30 a.m. For the next few weeks, I want to share with you some lessons that God is teaching me on the subject of prayer. There's a very difficult question that Job asked in chapter 21, verse 15 of his book, Job. He said, "Does it do any good to pray?" That's quite a question, isn't it? Well, Jeremiah answered that question in Jeremiah chapter 33 and verse 3 when he said, "Call unto me, and I will answer you and show you great and mighty things which you do not know." Jesus taught his disciples how to pray. That's interesting. He didn't teach them how to preach, but he taught them how to pray. In fact, that's the very question they asked him. When they saw him pray, that stirred something inside of them, and they were saying, "I wish I could talk to God and have an intimacy with God like Jesus has." And so they went to him and said, "Lord, teach us to pray." Well, for the last few years, since my retirement, I think God has been focusing in on my life in teaching me more how to pray. I was asked to preach at Blue Mountain College some time ago, and I preached on the subject, "If I had my ministry to live over." And in that message, I shared with those young preachers that if I had my ministry to live over, I would spend more time in prayer and less time in preaching. In other words, I would listen to him more than I would listen to myself. And so over the next few days and maybe 2 or 3 weeks, we want to talk about prayer. And I want to share with you some lessons that God has been teaching me. I'm sometimes haunted by the thought of how God could have used me if I would just have believed him more and trusted him more in the area of prayer. After all of these years, 55 years of ministry, you would think that I would that I would at least know more about prayer than I do, but in some ways I feel like a child in ankle-deep water, wading around in an ocean that we can swim in. Well, let me just tell you the very first thing real quickly, and we'll come back and enlarge on it next week. But the first thing that God is really teaching me about prayer these days is the fact that prayer is warfare. Now, prayer is work, prayer is worship, but never forget the fact that when we enter into the prayer closet, we enter into a battleground. In fact, prayer is the greatest expression of spiritual warfare that we can experience because it's hand-to-hand combat with the enemy. In Ephesians chapter 6, he tells us that we're to put on the whole armor of God. And then he lists that armor that we're to dress ourselves in. But here I am, a soldier all dressed up, but where am I to go? Well, the very first words he tells us after we get dressed is that we're to pray. We put on the armor to equip us to pray. Why? Because prayer is warfare. And we'll discuss this more later, but listen, I want you to know, dear friend, that prayer is God's answer to all the darts that the enemy wants to throw at us. Look forward to sharing with you more in the week ahead.